Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video on spiritual quotes. You know, words are the thread on which we string our experiences, and they are so important, and they always have been to me. I've been reading since the first grade, and there's something about a book, even a book with pictures, that is so mesmerizing, so incredible, that I can get completely lost in them. I remember reading Victor Hugo's Les Mis when I was about 16, 17 years old for high school, and I was just bawling, okay? I mean, I can really get into books. Words have always been incredible to me. When I say a word, I usually see it in my mind. Now, as far as the quotes are concerned, I have a whole book of them here, and I wrote down a ton of quotes in my life. When I would come across these great quotes in books, I would just take my pen and write them down because I didn't want to ever lose them. Of course, now we have the internet, but still, when you find a good quote, you should always write it down. And I wanted to read you a few quotes that didn't make the list, but are still amazing quotes. And one of them is, "Failure is merely another opportunity to more intelligently begin again." So whenever you fail at something, that is a good one to remember. Another one is, "As the island of our knowledge grows, so do the shores of our ignorance." Meaning, the more we know, the less we know. That one is said by John Wheeler. And here's another one by Winston Churchill that I love. "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." Fantastic stuff. And I can go through and just rattle them off, but here's one that I quoted in my last video on Open Your Reality about my harrowing bike ride. "There is only one success, to be able to spend your life in your own way." And that's what I've been trying to do for the better part of my life. Spend it in my own way. Even though I'm not a millionaire and I don't have money, I have still been able to make my life work. Yes, I've had to endure through a lot of hard work, but I've also had times like when I was living in Thailand in a country house for 6 months that was very idyllic. And at times I've traveled off to Europe. I would have loved to live in Spain in a little chateau for a while, but that never came off. And at one point I had a goal of living in various countries. So maybe 3 months in France, 3 months in Germany, 3 months in Japan, 3 months in Spain, and learn the language, not proficiently, but just pick up the basics as much as I could in those 3 months, learn about the culture, and move on. Now, when it comes to words, you know, one of the things that really irks me is when people describe an experience with one word. Well, how was your day at the fair today? You know, how was your day? And they say, "Good." Okay, that tells me not much. So people's vocabularies have been on the decline ever since radio and TV came out all the way back in the 1920s, and it's been dropping precipitously. And today, people's vocabularies are very small compared to where they were. Maybe we use an average of 3,000 words when the English language has like 60,000 or more words. So even if we just doubled to 6,000, there's so many more words we can use to describe our experiences. And when you read the great classic works, now I took English literature as a major in college, and I don't advise it unless you want to be a teacher. And I did eventually become one for a year. But if you read the great writers of the past, I'm talking Leo Tolstoy, Alexandre Dumas, one of the great French writers. He also had a son that wrote a book that was great. And I'm also talking about Victor Hugo, who of course wrote Les Mis. I remember just bawling from that book, you know, as I said before, really sad book. But you know, you read those writers and then you look at how people speak today. Now, I understand there's a little bit of a chasm between writing and speaking. As far as writing is concerned, I've always felt myself to be a very good writer, but as a speaker, I feel I have a lot to learn. I am not even close, and when I watch these videos back, I cringe at how bad I am as a speaker, truly. Now, you may not think so, but there are so many times I say like, or you know, or just words like that. And I just said it, just words like that. So I wish I could be a little bit more streamlined in how I speak and use more of the higher vocabulary that I learned. And here's a book and I would buy these hardcover books at Borders Books and Music, if you remember, and I would take a blue ink gel pen and write down vocabulary in them. In this particular book, I have over 600 words. I have all the way to 634, and then I have the word endemic as the last one. Widespread or peculiar to an area or people. And there are so many words out there that you would read in a book and just be completely unaware of what it was. What if I told you the word salubrious? Do you know what that means? Favorable to health. So in college, as I told you, I was an English lit major, and I was reading a lot of these 19th and 18th century authors, and they were using these higher vocabulary words called bombastic. And I just didn't understand the context of them. When you don't know the word, you really don't know the sentence. You don't know the meaning the author's trying to convey. And now imagine seeing these words in every other sentence. So I had enough of it. I got sick of it, and I decided to buy this book, and I would write down every time I'm reading, I don't care where, I would stop and write the word down I didn't understand. I'd look up the definition, and then I would write the simplest definition here. One of my favorite words was iconoclast or iconoclastic. And the definition was a breaker or destroyer of images based on error or superstition. You're probably wondering how I remembered those definitions. Well, I used to commit all these definitions to memory. I've since lost many of them, but I could get them back very quickly. And some of them I will never lose, like vortex, a powerful and rapid whirling movement. And there was a technique that I learned in a book called Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. If you remember Tony Robbins, the great NLP guy and psych guy who was able to make people overcome their fears in seconds using some abstruse techniques. He wrote a book called Unlimited Power, and in that there was just a page where he talked about how to remember anything. And he says if you basically chunk it up and you close your eyes and look up and to the left to access your long-term visual memory and you see it, you will never forget it. And it's basically true. That's how I would go around memorizing the spelling of words and also vocabulary and then eventually the quotes. So, and also guys, I should tell you that not only was I doing that with the quotes and the vocabulary, and I was also writing down my ideas in journals. And so here's a journal where this is one of the smaller books. I also had the bigger ones. And I'd buy these hardcover books in Borders Books and Music, which since closed up. And here's a journal entry from Wednesday, May 10th, 2000. And you can see this whole book is filled, all right, with my journal writing. And the cool thing about journal writing is it captures a moment in time. It's like a snapshot of your day or your life in that time. Think about last week. Do you remember specifically what you did on Wednesday of last week or Wednesday afternoon or at 3 p.m.? Probably not, right? Maybe you could say, oh, I was getting out of my job that time because you get out every day at 3. But for the most part, we just don't remember all of these things that happen in our lives. We remember the major events. So that's what I love about journal writing, is because it solidifies it. But it really depends also on you, because you have to be a good writer and string together some words and have some vocabulary. You have to be able to write a bit to capture it. And I've always felt that I was a good writer. So sometimes I would be influenced by whoever I was writing, and I would try to write in the style of an Alexandre Dumas or a Victor Hugo. And sometimes I was just practical. And these journals, I would write anywhere. If I had time, if I was at school, sometimes I'd write it, or when I was home, or even if I was working and nobody was around, I would start writing these journals. And I can look back in them, and I can see exactly what I was thinking, and I tried to be as honest as possible in these journals with myself, because I knew the only one to probably read them would be myself. So there's no point in trying to be delusional. And most of the time, like I was just reading this one, I have stacks of them filled like this, and I want to share some with you, and I will in future videos. I'll give you just a hint of what I said here. A fresh journal. Here's a recap of the last few days. And by the way, this is from Wednesday, May 10th, the year 2000. So we're talking over 23 years ago. Here's a recap of the last few days. I have been working like a beast, although I have had fun doing so. I sometimes enjoy school, and working at Porsche is a novelty that adds delight to the thought of a long and harrowing career as a city teacher. So I started as an 8th grade teacher in 1999, so I was less than a year into it. My father was the general manager of a Porsche dealership, and I started selling cars with him in May. And so it was something completely different from teaching, but I liked it just as much, if not better. I awake about 5 a.m., arrive at school around 7 a.m., leave at 3:30 p.m., arrive at Porsche at 4 to 4:30 p.m., and work until 8 to 8:30 p.m. I arrive home by around 9 p.m. So, as you can see, I was working very long, hard days back then. My days are not my own, and I have scarce time to read or write. I know the next 2 months are a sacrifice, but one that is necessary. It's only the 4th day of work at Porsche, but already I am exhausted. I put a tremendous amount of energy into school, and although I'm up to the challenge of work here, I'm tired and need to use the bathroom. Well, being a vegan, yes, a lot of fiber in my diet, fruits and veggies, so I was going to the bathroom often. And anyway, yeah, that's a little bit of a taste, and it really, there's a lot better journal entries than that. But if you want me to read a few to you, because I did once on Open Your Reality, and many people loved it and expressed an interest. I actually was dating a girl one time. This is probably maybe a couple years ago. And I would read her these journal entries. She was a book lover, and she was very literary, and she absolutely loved them. She wanted me just to read a lot of my journal entries. Some of them are not the best because I was talking about money, and I was always trying to save enough money to quit the rat race and get out into a different country and live for as long as I can, where I'd be able to read and write and meditate and just be my own person. Like Christopher always said, spend life in your own way. But anyway, I'm now in Florida, and I still think about travel, but there's the cost factor, there's the food factor, and there's also some other things. So, but I would love to jump on a plane one day and just surprise you guys and be like, hey, I'm in California. Maybe one of these days. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video all the way until the end. You know I truly appreciate that. Give it a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you have not done so already. And I'll see all you guys in the next video. Peace.